Hi there, welcome to Peg Space Bytes. Today's Space Byte is about Virgil Gus Grissom and mission MR4. Enjoy. Lieutenant Colonel Virgil Ivan Gus Grissom is known worldwide because he was the second American man in space. Gus Grissom was born on April 3, 1926, and grew up in Mitchell, Indiana. He was in the Boy Scouts. After graduating from high school, he served as an aviation cadet for the United States Air Force during World War II. During the war, he took leave to marry his high school sweetheart, Betty Moore, on July 6, 1945, and later had 2 sons. Because of his desire to fly, and realizing that the Air Force was not going to help his dream come true at that time, Gus Grissom resigned his commission in November 1945. He ended up working at Carpenter's Bus Body Works, but did not find the job fulfilling. He decided to enroll at Purdue University to pursue a Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering. He graduated in February 1950. Since he still wanted to become a test pilot, he decided to re-enlist in the Air Force. Gus Grissom finished Air Cadet training and earned his pilot's wings. He flew as a combat fighter pilot in the Korean War with the 334th Fighter Interceptor Squadron. His F-86 Sabre jet was named Scotty after his newborn son. His plane was shot at, but it was never hit. When his combat mission ended, he had earned the Air Medal with Cluster and the Distinguished Flying Cross. After the Korean War, he became a flight instructor for new cadets. During the time, he attended the Institute of Technology at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Then he went to test pilot school at Edwards Air Force Base. In 1957, Gus Grissom received his test pilot credentials and ended up specializing in testing new jet fighters. He was instructed to report to Washington, D.C., and learned that he was selected as a potential candidate for Project Mercury. Like Alan Shepard, he volunteered to undergo weeks of numerous tests that were to determine if he was physically, mentally, and psychologically fit to fly into space. After the tests were completed, he was one of the 7 men selected for Project Mercury. On April 13, 1959, Virgil Gus Grissom, along with Alan Shepard, Walter Schirra Jr., Donald Slayton, John Glenn Jr., Scott Carpenter, and Gordon Cooper, were chosen as the first group of 7 astronauts for Project Mercury. For the next 2 years, the 7 astronauts spent many hours, sometimes up to 16 hours per day, in training. This involved, but not limited to, survival skills training, engineering work, flight training, and monitoring spacecraft design and production. Virgil Gus Grissom was selected to be the 2nd American astronaut to fly into space. After Alan Shepard's flight, it was determined that Grissom would fly a similar mission to ensure that the initial flight was not just a stroke of luck. Virgil I. Gus Grissom was the 2nd man to be launched into space on July 21, 1961. The flight had to be rescheduled twice due to the weather conditions. Gus Grissom was in the Liberty Bell capsule aboard the Mercury-Redstone rocket on mission MR4 from Cape Canaveral, Florida. The Mercury-Redstone rocket that launched Grissom into space was the same rocket that put Alan Shepard into space a couple of months earlier. Liberty Bell, which was named by Grissom since it was shaped like a bell, was the same size as Freedom 7, which is the capsule that Alan Shepard used. There were 3 improvements made to the original capsule. The control panel was redesigned to accommodate future orbital flights. The small portholes were replaced with a large picture window, and an explosive hatch was installed in order to escape the capsule if necessary. Mission MR4 lasted 15 minutes, 37 seconds, and reached an altitude of 118.3 miles, which is equal to 190 kilometers. Its maximum speed was 5,134 miles per hour, which is equal to 8,262 kilometers per hour. Gus Grissom experienced 11.2 Gs, or 11.2 times his normal weight. Liberty Bell capsule splashed down in the Atlantic Ocean 302 miles, which is equal to 486 kilometers, from the launching site in Florida. The flight and landing were successful. The side egress hatch of the capsule opened prematurely, but Grissom was able to depart from the capsule quickly. Unfortunately, the capsule sank 15,000 feet. After a couple of minutes, Gus Grissom was rescued and was transported by a helicopter to an aircraft carrier. When Project Mercury ended, Gus Grissom remained active in NASA. He, along with fellow astronaut John Young, flew in the first crewed Gemini flight, Gemini 3, on March 23, 1965. Grissom was a command pilot for the mission aboard the Molly Brown capsule. After Gemini 3's successful journey, he was assigned as the backup pilot for Gemini 6. When the Apollo program began, Gus Grissom was selected to be the commander of the first crewed flight of Apollo. During a pre-flight test on January 27, 1967, there was a fire that swept through the command module. All three astronauts, Gus Grissom, Edward White, and Roger Chaffee, who were sitting in the command module at that time, lost their lives. Lieutenant Colonel Virgil I. Gus Grissom was buried at Arlington National Cemetery in Section 3 in Washington, D.C. He is buried next to Roger Chaffee, another astronaut from Apollo 1. I hope you enjoyed today's Space Bite. Learn about Enos the Astrochimp on the next Space Bite. Remember, endeavor to discover new horizons and challenge yourself to reach for the stars. See you next time. Bye-bye.